But we want to bring in a guest from Denver to join the conversation about this dangerous pace of climate change. Bob Henson is a weather and climate science blogger from Weather Underground, a U.S.-based commercial weather service. He's also the author of The Thinking Person's Guide to Climate Change. Bob, thanks so much for joining us. Sean's seen this from probably every angle there is, and he's going to help us with the conversation because he's been to the Amazon, he's been to Greenland, and of course, his documentary on the Arctic coming up. But I want to go back to these two new reports coming out. How alarming are these figures, and what were the takeaways for you?
These are really, I think, very concerning signposts in the journey that we're traveling on. Neither one of them was especially shocking to me. The carbon dioxide announcement, it was pretty clear earlier this year that we were going to set a record for 2014. And in fact, every year for the last few years has set a record. But nevertheless, it's really important to recognize those points, especially in the lead up to the Paris negotiations. I think the fact that we're going to probably hit the 1 degree C benchmark is even more concerning in a way, because there was no guarantee that was going to happen this year. What it really is El Nino bumping us up to that point. The way the climate system works is El Nino tends to add a little bit of heat to the global atmosphere from the oceans, and La Nina, the counterpart, takes a little bit of heat away and out of the atmosphere. So in a stationary climate, those kind of roll up and down. But of course, we have a non-stationary climate. We're adding greenhouse gases, warming the climate. So when we hit these milestones, when we hit these record highs, it's usually during an El Nino. And that's, in fact, what's happening this year. One of the strongest El Ninos on record is bumping us up to what will almost certainly be a global record.
Bob, Sean Caleb's here. Thanks for being on. I really want to ask you about how significant is it that China is one of the nations leading the push, a dramatic change from Copenhagen back in 2009. And one thing I learned up in the Arctic, permafrost is melting at an alarming rate up there. And so much methane and carbon dioxide is trapped in the permafrost that is being released as it melts and thaws. The fact that these greenhouse gases stay in the atmosphere for so long, so even though they may make significant strides paring back coal use and trying to reduce the amount that they are releasing, it doesn't go away quickly at all.
Absolutely not. In fact, I've been working on a project the last several days to kind of quantify, if you put, say, 100 molecules of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, how long does it take those 100 molecules to leave? And it's surprisingly, devilishly difficult to figure that out, because it's not just those 100 molecules. Once those start to get absorbed by the ocean and land, well, the next year you have 100 more molecules kind of waiting in line. So, you know, it's a big problem, and it's going to take a long time to get rid of the carbon dioxide that we're continually adding to the atmosphere. You know, we're not just in debt in terms of our carbon footprint, but we're adding to that debt every year. And it's going to take a long time to turn this ship around, but hopefully milestones like this will help raise awareness and get people's mindset towards what we need to be doing.
Bob, let me just piggyback off what Sean was asking, because Friday, President Xi Jinping was in Singapore, gave a major speech there at one of the universities. And of course, everybody wants to hear what he has to say about the economy, but almost every one of these speeches, he tends to punctuate talking about green technology, talking about climate. And kind of dovetailing with that, we heard the U.S. president last week talking about Keystone, talking about climate, green technology as well. Having these two powerful leaders sending the same signal, what impact will that have on Paris, do you think, in terms of shifting the opinions of some other countries?
You know, I think it's already having a pretty major impact. When you combine the emissions from carbon and the United States, rather from China and the United States, that's more than half of all the carbon dioxide put out by the whole globe in terms of human created CO2. So to have China and the U.S. on the same page now, U.S. and China leaders talking about this, working things out, is an enormous milestone and huge progress over where we were in 1997, 98, going into the last major agreement, the Kyoto Protocol, when there was considerably more controversy about the relative roles of the U.S. and China. So I'm very heartened by this. Again, I think we have a long road to travel, but there's a real potential for at least making some starting points in Paris that could take us a long way for many years to come.
Bob, we've talked about the figure 1 degree Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius. I want to throw another number at you, $100 billion. That figure is very important. The nations meeting in Paris want to try and create a fund to help developing countries not go through the same industrial revolution that China, the United States, and other countries went through. Where is that money going to come from? And indeed, could that sidetrack everything? And we also know that a very powerful U.S. senator is going to go there as a truth squad of one. What kind of harm could that do to try to paint the U.S. as not all being on the same page in trying to approach this problem?
Well, I believe I know which senator you're referring to. He's from the state where I grew up, Oklahoma, and if it's who I'm thinking of.
Yes, it is.
I don't think that's going to have a major impact, frankly. You know, we've got leaders from all over the world, and I don't think one senator is going to make a dent in any particular direction. The $100 billion, it's a very good question as to where that'll come from. You know, that was agreed to several years ago. I believe the origination of that was at the Copenhagen Summit in 2009. So most countries around the world agreed that, yes, we need to create a fund to help those countries that aren't responsible for this problem. You know, it's mainly the long-term industrialized countries that got it rolling, and a larger pool of countries now are contributing to it. But the less developed countries, poor countries, they're the ones that are going to have the largest expense and the most trouble paying for the kinds of adaptation they are going to have to do and are already doing. So it's really going to be up to the richer countries to figure out how to sustain this fund. I hope there is the political will to do that. You know, it's a lot of money, but it's not certainly, I think, out of reach. And it will be interesting to see how that plays into the overall discussion. Once it comes down to brass tacks dollars, the equations do change, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
All right, Bob Henson joining us from Denver. Thanks so much.